sometimes embarrassment, do and say stupid things or things that are mistakes. Making mistakes is, I think everybody who makes progress has to accept the value of making mistakes. Because mistakes are what happened when you apply a new idea. And if you never make mistakes, you probably never had a new idea. So you don't want to do that, and it's difficult, especially if you're going to be in business or responsible for other people. So family has been a big value to me. That ties into my own childhood and so forth. But when you put the idea of the necessity of making mistakes in the context of being responsible for somebody else, it gets dicey. And parents make this mistake all the time. They think they're being, it's for your own good, or it's gonna, hurt, or some sort of bullshit about what other people should do, especially if they're kids, your kids. So I've become very involved in education. Education is also a funny word, because I usually use the word learning. Education is like what I'm going to do to you, and I don't like that. So your learning is what you need to do, and I'm here to make that happen better. Both of my kids are kind of homeschooled. At least they're not in compulsory schooling. One is homeschooled, he's 12. The other's 24. He's went through what's called democratic schooling, which is a very open, loose thing, and now he's in graduate school. And those are interesting stories. And I've written 3 books on learning and education, which we'll maybe get to. You can find them on my website. And one of them's free. You can see it as hypertext and read it online.
Can I ask there, Lincoln, just a question? Because I wonder if there's always similarities and differences between all people. But as you're speaking and you talk about curiosity and learning, as you're talking about now, that comes through even in the practice, right? As a therapist, as you were saying that, it resonated with me very deeply. This idea of like, sure, I want to help people. Sure, there's a puzzle, but like it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to see in real time how humans function in all different situations, as you said, being triggered by something or trauma they've dealt with. And I think perhaps there's a similarity between us in that in many ways, the reason I do the show is similar. Like I want to learn from people. And it's almost, there's a selfishness in it, if you want to use that in the purest form of like, I can use that to then enhance my life in some way. One of the things I recently started doing is volunteering, or will be volunteering at hospice, like a hospice center. And I find it in very much the same way. And it's funny, I think you'll appreciate this, but sometimes I struggle to talk about it because, again, I certainly want to help people that are struggling and going through something terrible and getting to the end of their lives. But if I'm being totally honest, I also see it very much as an opportunity to learn from people that are at maybe the most extreme point in their lives where they're getting ready to die, and to see what you can glean from that, what lessons you can take. And I struggle because part of that feels like, ooh, is that wrong to do that? But I don't think it is. I think that's what we're here to do. So I wanted to ask you, like, what is all the learning towards though? Like, what is it? Is it just, if we had to put it in its simplest, most base form, is it to have a happier life? Is it to bring more joy into your life? Is it to achieve more things? Like, I wonder that for myself often. Like, why do I want to learn so much about human nature? Why do I want to understand other people so much so that I can understand myself better? For you, what's it all working toward? Maybe it's your children. You said family. Like, is it to be a better dad? What is all that learning geared towards?
Singing, chaos, and change.
Mm.
I want to go out singing. I only know 2 people who've done it, and they were both pretty damn inspired people throughout their whole lives. I want to change. I have high aspirations, and I'm not there where I want to be. I'm not even close. Well, some people could say I am. If you look at my history, I've done a lot, but I'm not satisfied. Definitely not satisfied. I have 2 women partners, and the 2 children, the women partners are estranged from me, but I insist on good relations with them and as much as possible. But I'm disappointed. So the children are, my investment and my hope. sort of like clients, you can't put too much on them because it's their life, not yours. You're there to serve, not to invest and get a return. I think chaos is interesting. And, this puts me back into the science of it, because in the foundations of quantum mechanics, chaos, randomness, and determinism are big issues. And, I wrestle them into real life terms. Are you supposed to be retiring in happiness, or are you supposed to be progressing through new levels of insight and disturbance? I don't think we are alive to be happy. We have this sort of genetic propensity to be attracted toward happiness, but I think we have this sort of species obligation to evolve and to evolve each other. And as you evolve yourself, you evolve those around you. So who do you want to be around? I know some people who wanted to be only around people who facilitated their goals and didn't want to be disturbed by, the noise. And then, of course, they're, sort of leading moral and political figures who are totally immersed in the noise. And I guess they feel a reward in bringing people up, or bringing up the level of conversation. So it's interesting to, see current events with, some of the political actors who are bringing down the level of conversation. I don't really understand that, but somehow I don't pin it on them. There's some cultural thing going on so the interesting thing is that to grow, you have to engage confusion, and confusion feels pointless, but it also means a multiplicity of opportunities. That's partly what is confusing. So every time somebody throws you and makes you feel contrary, or, want to fight something, it's usually because some opportunity is being presented to you. Maybe not a good one. Opportunity comes with, the idea that it's always good. It's not always good. Evolution isn't always good, and the way forward isn't always straight. So what was your question? I see my answers: singing, chaos, and change. What was the question?
It was, what's all the learning towards? And I think you touched on it. I mean, one, the evolution piece is an interesting piece of, we have somewhat of an obligation as a species, as part of this species, to evolve and to be better, which I think that's a loaded phrase, which I think is interesting and to dig into. Where you started with I want to go out singing, that was the other piece of the answer to the question. Let me ask you to just say a little bit more about that. I mean, is that metaphorical, I assume, or maybe literal? Maybe you literally want
No, it's literal.